Hello there and welcome to this week's quick tip video. This week we're looking closely at Vari Audio, the pitch correction tool included inside of Cubase. Of course there's much debate about how much pitch correction we should be using. I'm probably on the minimal side, but if you look at electronic music, then people use a lot of it quite successfully as an effect. In this case, I've got a vocal that needs some pitch correction, so I'm double clicking on the audio file. Now I've got my sample edit window open. I can go over to the tabs on the left hand side and go down past audio warp to Vari Audio. Now if I click on the pitch and warp button, Cubase will start analyzing the data inside of this track and very quickly give me a visual representation of the pitch. We've got blocks that coincide with the piano scroll on the left hand side and squiggles that represent micro pitch. We can click on a block and then use the cursor keys on the keyboard to very quickly move backwards and forwards. You can also use the up and down cursor keys. Hold down Command and Scroll will automatically snap that block into alignment with the notes on the grid. Hold down Shift and you can freely move the block up and down. That way, you can probably use your ears a little more than your eyes. You can edit multiple events at once using Vari Audio by selecting all or drawing a rectangle around the events you wish to edit. Then you can go over to Quantize Pitch and use the slider to control just how much they are going to snap into that grid. And now you can see with it all the way up, it's snapped perfectly into the piano scroll on the left-hand side. Already that's sounding better, but let's go to the straighten pitch and move that all the way up and have a listen. Sound familiar? Well, it's up to you how much you want to use, so let's drop it back to half. Already it's sounding a bit more natural, and it's definitely sounding more in tune than it did before we started with Vari Audio. Now, if you've got an eye for detail, or if your job depends on it, then I would suggest going in and really checking each individual note, and we're going to cover that. Just before I do, there's one other really neat feature. You can control the pitch using an external keyboard. Just select the note, go up to MIDI input and activate it, and now play away on a MIDI keyboard. This is a massive time saver because I can combine this with the computer cursor keys and just move through the track and make sure the MIDI note is correct using my external MIDI controller. Vari Audio isn't just about pitch. We can also control the entry point and the length of a note. Watch this. We're dragging the start back. I'm undoing it, and now I'm shortening the note. It's worth mentioning that Vari Audio will analyze any background noise that you have in your recording and any sibilance or microphone noise. And you can see this artifact here at the start of this block. There's a little X in the middle of that block, which I'm clicking on to disable the pitch information. When I do, the block goes grey. Back over on the left-hand side in the Vari Audio tab, I'm switching over to segments. There's a shortcut for this, by the way, and it's the Tab key on your computer keyboard. In segments, we can change the start and the finish point for each pitch event. So if we think it's capturing too much data at the start, we can simply drag it back. Or if it's not capturing enough at the end, we can again move it back. Have a look at this highlighted event. The pitch is fairly constant, and then the singer develops vibrato towards the end. So we can chop this by holding down with the mouse towards the bottom of the event. Now we've split it into two, and we can click on the second segment, and once again go back to straighten pitch to smooth that vibrato out a bit. Maybe it's a bit too long. No problem, we go back to pitch and warp, and then just pick up on the end and shorten it. Now that it's shorter, the vibrato stands out more, so let's straighten it to get more of a natural sound. I'm hitting undo to go back to what I had before. Now the good thing about the micro pitch is I can see the vibrato, and if I want to change this little segment at the end, in the pitch and warp tab, I'm going up to the top of the event until I get the cursor. Then when I find the spot, I press down with my mouse and Cubase will remember that point. Now as I drag the pitch up and down, it will only affect the pitch from that point onwards. We can do the same at the start of events. We can also edit the micro pitch on things like curves or slides into notes. So I've picked up on the top left-hand corner of this event and I'm dragging that curve up and down. Picking up on the micro pitch in the top left and right corner of each event will affect the micro pitch of the whole event. So if you don't want to use the scissors to chop up each event, insert that marker to get greater control over the micro pitch. In addition to using scissors to chop up events inside the segment section of Very Audio, we can also glue multiple events together. To do that, draw a rectangle around the events that you wish to glue together, and then hold down the Alt or Option key on your computer keypad, and immediately they'll all lock together in the one event. Let's do a quick comparison. Without, with. Notice it's a lot more natural sitting in the track. Let's have another listen. Without and with. That pitch is way better. And before the haters start hating, look, I know it's pitch correction, but at the moment there's not a whole lot of effects or dynamic processing over the top. And once you start adding those, the whole pitch correction takes a back seat and the vocals start pushing through a lot more. It's up to you to decide on how much Very Audio you want to use, but I promise you, once you get used to it, even if you're using it 2 or 3 times minutely on a track, it is a time saver and a lifesaver. In the next quick tip video, we're going to look at using Very Audio on multiple harmony tracks that have been recorded. I'll catch you then.
Good evening. Welcome to the November edition of Steinberg Sessions. And happy Thanksgiving to all of our American friends. How on earth did it get to be the end of November? Wow, this year has been flying by. But it's an exciting time of year. The holidays are coming. The Leafs are winning. That's for my good buddy Kevin, who's out there in YouTube land, and he's a Jets fan. You know, he's a Jets fan. Anyway, we're not here to talk about hockey, even though I would like to, because it's a rare time when the team that I cheer for is actually winning, but we won't go there. Last month, we started talking about sort of the preparation and the editing of vocal tracks, and I thought we would finish it off this month on a topic that I've been sort of teasing you that I would talk about for many months now, and that is tuning vocals. Now, tonight is not going to be any kind of in-depth sort of review of all of the various ways that we can do it. I'm happy to do that. However, what I did want to do is just show you a little bit of the 3 most obvious or popular ways that a lot of people that use Cubase or other DAWs would go about tuning vocals. So the first one, as you saw in the video there, and that video is excellent because it kind of covers all of the basic functionality of the tuning that is built into Cubase. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that, and I'll just reiterate how to access, but I think the video covers it. The other 2 areas that I'm going to show you just briefly, just give you a little taste, and then you can download the demos and check it out if you're not getting what you want out of Cubase all by itself, is Autotune Pro and Melodyne Studio, which is not version 5, which is the newest one. And these are the 2 programs that we hear people talk about the most. Before we get into that, I just want to let you know that this is the last Steinberg Sessions broadcast of 2021. Not to worry, we will be back. We're already planning things for next year, so no worries. There's lots more to come, but this will be it until after the new year. So maybe over the holidays when you don't have anything to do, you could go back and rewatch some of the other episodes because they were so chock full of info and you might have missed something. Anyway, moving over to Cubase. So the song that I have pulled up tonight is the same one I had last month, and I didn't play it all the way through for you, and we're about to release it, so maybe I'll play it for you or maybe not, but it doesn't matter. Actually, why don't I'll give you a little bit of the beginning again, just to remind you the tune. But we're going to look at the male vocal in this, Dante. Dante Brown is his name. He's a young man from Toronto who has an amazing voice. So, but anyway, here is a little bit of the tune. It's called Once Upon a Time.
Hey. Hey. I'm heading out. What you doing? Where you go now? Where you at? I'm sick and tired, uninspired, doubt. Everything I said to you, it was all true. Lies about tonight. Not coming back, I'm done with that. Why? I just can't love you. I don't wanna be alone. Once upon a time is gone. Why don't you love me? I just wanna be alone. Once upon a time is gone. Once upon a time is gone. Once upon a time is gone. Start over again. Start over again. Ooh, yeah. No, no, no. No, no, no. Don't understand. It's over, babe. The light is faded out. We're out of time. One more chance, another dance, be mine. Let's get it right. I don't want you, we're done and through. But there's no tonight. Not coming back. I'm crushed by that. Why don't you love me?
All right, so you get a sense. Pretty excited about this one. This was really fun to work on, and as you can see, we got lots of tracks up here. But anyway, we're here for vocals. So the vocal that you were just listening to, all of those vocals are already tuned. I tuned them before, and those are the tuned versions that will be in the released version of the song. So hopefully, now my approach to tuning is to try to keep them sounding as natural as possible, but to use the tuning as a way to tighten up or sort of focus the vocal. The other thing is, and you know, we can talk about this till the cows come home. I'll go back on camera for this because this is serious business. A lot of people are like, well, if you have good singers, why do you even need to tune the vocal at all? And, you know, here's the thing, you don't. A great singer doesn't need any auto-tune, and certainly both the vocalists in here, Dante and Siobhan, are excellent singers and don't need auto-tune or Melodyne or any sort of tuning at all. So why did I use it? Well, as I say, to focus it. And there's a sound, like some of our favorite pieces of outboard gear, when we run a signal through some sort of device or plug-in or piece of gear, it imparts a sound on the sound. And these days, whether we like it or not, the sound of the radio and Spotify and pop music and R&B and rap and all these things that we hear, they all have some form of tuning, and so it's a sound that we've become accustomed to. And I think that even though a perfectly in-tune vocal can live in a track, sometimes it sounds a little bit unusual or different to a lot of people's ears if it doesn't have that processing. So certainly with great vocalists like this, I'm not doing extensive tuning. I may sort of put all the vocals through it in some capacity, but admittedly, in this track, there are some lines where there were some little runs and things where there is no tuning whatsoever because they sounded better without the tuning. But for the most part, all of these vocals have some form of tuning on them. Okay, back to the track. So we saw the amazing built-in Very audio, and so just to show you how easy it is to access, I know that we had this in the video, but double click on a track and then just click on this edit Very Audio button and see what pops up. Isn't that wonderful? And then all we have to do, if we want to do this relatively quickly, certainly we can get into moving notes around and things like that. But the beautiful thing here is that we can just select all the parts that we want, and we can quantize the pitch. And as you can see, when I quantize the pitch, it just centers them a little bit. It just moves them to the middle of those notes, and I can choose how much of that I want. So I can go all the way and make it perfectly in tune, or I can sort of just do it a little bit, just to tighten it up a little bit. And that, in a lot of cases, that works really, really well. Now the other part, and I know that they showed you this in the video, is the straighten curve. And as you can see, what happens with like anywhere where there's a little bit of vibrato or motion in the vocal, when I straighten it, it flattens it right out. And that's how we get that sort of funny kind of sound, vocal sound. Everyone can, you know, that robotic kind of auto-tune sort of thing. Now, shift formant, for those of you that are wondering about that, that just kind of changes the harmonic series of the vocals. So you can make a masculine vocal sound a little more feminine, or you can make a feminine vocal sound a little more masculine. So sometimes that's fun to play around with as an effect. Okay, so go back to the video, check that out, but that's basically all we have to do to access Very Audio, and it's built right in. And I gotta be honest with you, I haven't used it a ton over the years, but I've started to use it a little bit more than I used to, and it's really, really good. And if I'm honest with you, I don't think that we actually need these other two plugins that I'm going to show you. I think Very Audio does everything that we need. However, they are quite popular, so let's have a look at them. So let's take this section of the vocal here. Okay, so that's Dante, and that's Dante without any tuning. That's a dry, just the vocal the way it was recorded. And first, let's take a look at Melodyne. Now, Melodyne is the newer of the programs, and it's really popular, and dare I say, maybe even more popular than other alternatives these days. And when people talk about a vocal being auto-tuned, these days, oftentimes they're talking about a vocal being melodyned, but auto-tune's been around a little bit longer, so we tend to refer to everything as auto-tune. But these days, in a lot of cases, what you're hearing is Melodyne. So how we deal with this is, unlike Very Audio, which because it's built in, we just click a button and it does the analysis and away we go. In this, we actually have to turn on this transfer button, which is essentially, it's going to record the pitches that we're going to play. So, so let's play. I've just inserted it on the track. This is the track I was just playing. And so let's play it and let's see what happens.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
Okay, and there we go. And we get a display that looks very, very much like the Very Audio in Cubase, and I wonder where they got the inspiration from. Anyway, so this is the same as Very Audio in the sense that we can take it and we can move it around, same as we do in the other one. But, you know, just by way of showing you sort of the basic, simple, quick ways of doing things. So let's change this to, because the scale is A flat major in this one. So we can select all. So let's select all the parts. And here's kind of the quick way to deal with this. So we can correct the pitch, and as you see, pitch center, if we move this across, this was very much the same as the way it worked in Very Audio. We got a slider and it centers the pitches. The display is maybe a little bit more dramatic and accurate here than it was in Very Audio, but yeah, we can see it really well. And so we can center that, or we can use various degrees of it. And the other thing we can do here is we can straighten out, same thing. So it's like a smoothing thing in the pitch drift. So I don't know how well you can see that over these red blocks, but it's flattening out any of the vibrato and any of the stuff that's happening inside there, and you can see it kind of down here, moving it a little bit. So that's the quickest way to deal with pitch. Now, the other thing we can do here is we can actually sort of cut this to a grid. And this is kind of a cool feature in that we can select, say, 8th notes or 16th notes, and then as we do this, it moves them and it kind of quantizes the lines so that they fall right on the beat. And I love this feature, but I've got a bit of a story to tell afterwards about it. And you see it's kind of stretching to make it fit in the whole 8th note there. You can see that it's also moving the length of the notes as well. So that's kind of a neat feature, and sometimes it works great. Here's another feature, and this is actually probably my favorite feature of Melodyne, because it saves me a lot of time with compression and clip automation, is that I can make the quiet notes louder. You can see they're getting bigger, and or I can make the loud notes quieter. They can get smaller. So it's kind of like built-in clip automation, or like a compressor built in. It's really cool, and it saves you having to do a lot of work afterwards. So this is one of my favorite features. So here, you know, we can offset in sense, so we can make it sharp or flat, and so we can do it that way, and that all works really, really well. So that's the basic functionality of Melodyne, and so it couldn't be much simpler. You know, it's about as simple as Very Audio. To be honest, it doesn't really look a lot different. It might sound a teeny bit different than Very Audio, but I don't think, I think it's negligible. I think if you want to buy Melodyne, I think it's because you like the interface. And the other cool thing about Melodyne is in the more expensive versions, you can actually do polyphonic tuning, which means that you can tune notes in a chord, which is pretty incredible. So that's a very specific reason why Melodyne is pretty awesome. Okay, so that's Melodyne. Let's go to Autotune. And full disclosure, I've been using Autotune since the beginning of time, and all of the finished vocal on this track was done with Autotune. Not because I didn't try other things, but it just turned out in this case that it was the best solution for what I was doing. So when you pull it up, this is what it looks like. And you know, I would suggest choosing the range of the singer. So Dante is an alto tenor, and then I would choose the key, and in this case it's A flat. You can do all kinds of scales. It defaults to the chromatic scale, which is pretty fantastic. And actually, you can almost just pull up this at default and hit go, and it'll work in a lot of cases. Like, you don't even, in a lot of cases, need to do more than just use the default. But I find sometimes setting up the scale. And now, here's the quick controls, and I love this auto mode in Autotune because I can very, very quickly get a good result. So I can choose how fast the Autotune starts. So the note begins, and then it's how long it takes for it to kick in. And because a lot of singers tend to do scoops on the beginning of notes, sometimes just tweaking this until you find the right retune speed, which I find is usually somewhere between 35 and 45, is pretty cool. Now, flex tune is kind of a smoothing function like the other two have, so I usually put that somewhere in the middle. And humanize is kind of a cool thing that came in later versions of Autotune that allows some notes kind of get through without getting tuned. And so I usually play around with these, and they're usually somewhere in the middle. But let's just have a listen to this straight away, just with these auto settings with a couple of quick adjustments, and let's hear what that sounds like.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
So you can see it's showing you how much that it's actually tuning, like it's showing you the difference between where the note was and where it's ending up. Let's watch that again.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
Okay, so pretty natural result. Now everybody wants to know, how do you do the T-Pain thing, that rap thing? You set the retune speed as fast as it goes. You don't do any of these smoothing or humanizing things, and you get this.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
Okay, if you ever wondered how to do that, now you know. Anyway, so one little note about the scales is that I find that it's worth exploring the scales a little bit. This is in A flat major, but sometimes I find the relative minor will give me a slightly different result. So F minor, let's check that and see if you can hear any difference. Oh, let's go back to, sorry, we don't want T-Pain anymore. So let's put this back there. Let's go back to the middle here. Let's go back to the middle here, and let's have a listen.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
Okay, so sometimes it's just a little darker, a little lighter, and so I tend to try out, you know, the scale I'm in, the relative minor. Sometimes I'll try the major, a fourth up, and even though it gives me some wrong notes, sometimes it just sort of hits the notes in a slightly different way. So fun in auto mode. Now with Autotune, one of the things that it's had from the beginning is this graphical mode, which is quite extensive and admittedly not as friendly to look at. So that's a thing which you may prefer Very Audio or Melodyne for, but it's pretty powerful, and I'll just show you a couple of things. So we can select, this is sort of like the transfer or the recording that we did in Melodyne. You have to do the same in Autotune. So let's do that and capture the vocal in here.
Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, stay.
Okay, so there is the graphical representation of our vocal, and let's spread this out a little bit. Now, from the beginning of time, what we did, if we really wanted to get in there, was we would draw in the notes that we wanted. And so I select the line tool, and you can literally draw straight lines. And you can even do the fall-offs, and it sort of makes for nice straight lines. And so that was, you know, how I used to tune for a long time, and I've spent years doing this. And it gets a good result. And again, because I have the retune speed here, I can actually make it hit the note quicker or slower. For lead vocals, I would often have the retune speed would be slower, like it is on the other page. But for background vocals, if I wanted them particularly tight sounding, I could really dig into the retune speed here. So, so that's you know, sort of how you do that. And traditionally, that's how we've done it for a long time. Now, the nice thing about this is I've got a transpose key. So I can move this up and down, I can detune, you know, I can change the notes. And so if you're messing around with creating harmonies and stuff, it's a pretty cool thing. The other thing I can do is I can make a curve. So it actually took the notes that it drew in for me, and now I can actually go in and I can actually move these around and change the shapes of them and you know, create new sorts of sounds and just grab and change. So that's pretty cool as well. But the thing that is you all want to see is, so let's just clear all this. Oops, I got it captured again.
Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay.
So I know inquiring minds want to know, but can it look like Melodyne or Very Audio? And yes, in fact, it can. There we have it. And so, you know, we can mess around with transposing, and we can move, and it gives us MIDI notes for that. So, so very similar functionality, maybe a little deeper, maybe a little bit uglier interface here, but certainly you can go at all of these in the same graphical way if that's how you like to work. Now, why do I use Autotune the most? A lot of people ask me that, and there are two reasons. First of all, like I said, I've been using it forever, and I'm just so used to it, and it's just such a part of my workflow that, you know, it's hard to teach an old dog a new trick, as they say. But there's another reason. It's not only because I'm used to it and I've been using it for a long time, because I have spent a little bit of time with Melodyne and also with Very Audio. And admittedly, Very Audio is creeping into my workflow a little bit. But there's another reason. It was several years ago now, and I was doing a live record. And the producer I was the engineer, and the producer I was working with wanted to tune the live vocals because they were very isolated. Now, I got the tracks to mix, and so when I pulled them all up together, and I just started to listen to things, and I noticed when the singer was not singing, there was this weird kind of digital electronic-y sound that was happening in the background, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I thought maybe something was wrong with my computer. So I asked, you know, what was the process for the tracks, and, you know, did something go awry? And I learned that the tracks were as they were recorded, but the only difference was that the original recording engineer had used Melodyne on all of the vocals. Anyway, so of course then I went back to the tracks and I soloed the vocal tracks. And what I found was that Melodyne is maybe a little too good. It was not only tuning the vocals, but it was hearing the instruments in the background. And because it deals with polyphonic stuff, I think even though it was very faint, it was trying to tune what was happening in the background. And I was getting all this crazy digital noise. Now with a live recording, it sounds very unnatural if you chop out in between the vocal tracks, which is the first thing I tried to save it. But what we ended up having to do was we ended up having to get the original recorded vocal track and try a different way to tune it, which in those days, Very Audio hadn't come out yet. So I did it with Autotune, and I found I was able to tune the vocal, but Autotune left all the background bleed alone. So that was a reason early on that I specifically went with Autotune. Now, on this particular song, there was a thing that was happening with the background vocals, and I thought, oh, maybe Melodyne is the way to go for these background vocals, and I'll show them to you here. So I have these 9 tracks of background vocals here. So 3 on one part, left, center, right. 3 on, it's 3-part harmony, and it's left, center, right on each of them. So so what I wanted to do was, when I do background vocals, I like to have the one that's panned center to be straight down the middle in terms of pitch, like right in the center of the pitch. And then the left and the right panned background vocals, I like them to be slightly detuned because it makes things a little bit fatter. And so what I did was I tried Melodyne, and I thought with background vocals it might be fun to see if, you know, the quantizing feature in Melodyne, you know, could make them even tighter than the recording that I have here. So let's just hear these background vocals as they are here. Oh, where'd they go? They are through the lead vocal track. Is that right? Okay, so they're pretty tight. Like, they sound pretty good. Those are the untuned vocals. So anyway, so what I did was I, you know, did the center one in each case, right down the middle with Melodyne, and then I detuned the left and the right. And normally I do -8 cents on one side and +8 cents on the other side. And anyway, so I did all that work with Melodyne, and then I played back the end result, and yikes, it actually didn't, it wasn't as tight as it was before I tuned it. So that didn't work. So I went back to the old standby version, which was to just use Autotune. And so here's the one detuned -8. Here's the one down the center. Yeah, sorry, got a couple screens happening here. So -8, not detuned, and then the other one here is +8. So so I did that, and oh, it sounded lovely, and you heard them in the mix. Maybe I can just solo them here. I'll just solo the end result. Let's go back, and you can hear the background parts. So here they are here. Oh, I did the same thing again, didn't I? Okay, backgrounds. And then with a whole bunch of effects. They sound pretty good, and those are what's in the mix with the lead vocal. So let's just play that part so you can hear how it all sits in the mix. And that was just with the auto mode of Autotune. So here, let's have a listen to that.
Once upon a time is gone.
Let's play it again and turn them up a little bit. We couldn't hear that very well. Here we go again.
Once upon a time is gone.
Okay, So there you go, and you get a sense. And so, you know, in this particular case, and again, one of the reasons why my preferred method is Autotune is because I just had to pull up auto mode and make very quick adjustments, and that was the end result, and I think that sounds pretty good. And I went about it and did a lot more work with Melodyne and didn't get the result as quickly or as well. It didn't work out quite as well. So in any case, you can get excellent results from any of these methods. And again, I don't want to downplay Very Audio. Everything that you're hearing tonight is totally possible with Very Audio, and I know Devin Lougheed, who's producer friend of ours that we've had on here a number of times, he uses Very Audio all the time, and I don't think he uses plugins anymore. He just uses what's built in, and certainly, as I said, I'm moving that way. It's great for little quick fixes that I didn't get with the plugins that I'm using. And again, I'm not here to criticize Melodyne. Melodyne is an incredibly powerful tool that frankly probably doesn't work as well for me because I haven't put as much time into it as I have with Autotune. And as I say, I've just been using these since the beginning of time. Anyway, all amazing tools. We're lucky to have them. And yes, sometimes it even makes sense to auto-tune a good singer just to give you the sound of what's going on. If you would like to take a deep dive on any of these methods in particular, please send me an email, and that's something we can do next year. I'm happy to spend a whole episode on just one of these. I'm guessing you might want me to dive into Very Audio since it's free and it's built into Cubase, but let me know if you have any questions. And other than that, I just wanted to show you just a quick little insight. Look for the release of the tune, pretty excited about it. Have an amazing holiday. I know I will. Can't wait to be back in 2022 with some new ideas and some new guests and some new sessions and all kinds of new stuff. So anyway, have an amazing holiday, and we'll see you in 2022.